Hello and welcome. I am Deji Badimasi. There are increasing fears in the opposition People's Democratic Party (PDP) that the crisis between its presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar and the Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike may affect its chances in the 2023 presidential election. Now, this is as a report broke early this week that some governors loyal to the Rivers State Governor moved to Paris recently to further deliberate and strategize as to where they also met, I should say, with the presidential candidate of the ruling All Progressives Congress, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Although the reason for the meeting is not confirmed, there are agitations in the PDP because the governor's visit is coming weeks after Governor Kayode Fayemi of Ekiti State led his colleagues from the APC to Port Harcourt to meet with Wike. Now, on the other end, efforts to reconcile both Atiku and Wike have become very, very tenuous as the meetings between their teams have continued to end in deadlocks. Governor Wike has continued to maintain that he will not leave the PDP, but his actions do not support that. Almost on a weekly basis, he comes out on air to attack the party. Recently, he even started moving against party members in the state who are openly loyal to Atiku Abubakar. He has even shut down hotels, filling stations, and other properties belonging to these individuals now who are loyal to Atiku Abubakar. And all of this happening while talks are still going on to reconcile him and the party's presidential candidate. Well, we'll just wait and see how all of this will end. But joining me to discuss this further is public affairs analyst May Nasara Kogo Umar. He joins us live from Abuja. Mr. Kogo Umar, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Do you see the PDP resolving this crisis between Wike and its presidential candidate now before the election?
Yes, I'm not really surprised because there are manifestations of latent and manifest flagrant violations of the rules of the game, both in respect of the People's Democratic Party and the ruling party APC. APC's dimension is that of latent manifestation of these type of things going on between Wike and the presidential candidate of the party, Atiku Abubakar, while PDP is showing the manifest aspect of it. In other words, we are seeing the practical demonstration of the feud more in the PDP rather than in any other DC because of the public outcry we are seeing within the DC. And symbolically, it is showing the character of the political power play and the democratic personnel that we have decided to put forward for the entrenchment of democratic values.
But why do you think? Let me ask you this: why is it difficult for the governor? I'm talking about Governor Wike. Why is it difficult for him to accept the fact that he can't have his way all the time? And in this case, he's demanding the resignation of the party chairman. And you look at what is going on, you look at what is coming out from the leadership of the party, that is certainly not going to happen until probably after the elections, if Atiku Abubakar wins.
If there is democratic respect to sections 221 to 228 of the Constitution, and if there is respect to section 83 of the Electoral Act, as well as sections 87 and 88 of the Electoral Act, there must be installation of values and discipline and decorum in the way we do our things. But here we decided that to imbibe the most crudest of capitalist political system. In other words, money as the determinant of everything. That was the genesis of the whole thing. When we decided to play kleptonic, contractocratic politics whereby money is the determinant of everything. And here is Wike. Wike now is seeing that he has invested so much as the basis upon which he wants to be considered, going by the type of primaries that produce Atiku Abubakar himself, of which Atiku Abubakar too cannot claim any cleanliness as far as the issue of monetary inducement in the political determination is concerned. Now, the political party on the other side was there a loop, and political party decided that individual strengths of parties are overwhelming the hegemony of political structures within the party politics. Bearing in mind the fact that we have structures, PDP is the only party I can say that has really entrenched political structure at the level of body of trustees, the national trustees. This is where the national trustees should come into
but then
play
the national,
to show
but
the
then
leadership
yes,
that we are
but then
having
the board of
statesmen.
trustees has not been able to resolve this. You have a situation where it's proving like individuals are even more powerful than the party, so to speak.
That is precisely what I am saying in my recent remarks. Individuals are allowing to play more prominence over and above the party. In the Second Republic, the situation was not like this. If Adisa Akinlewe is sitting with his Secretary General, what was his name? I cannot remember. Shehu Shagari, when he comes, he sits on the floor as a son. The leadership of the party is paramount over and above any other office structure. And if, for example, Adeniran Agonsanya is seated, whenever Chief Zik came on board, Zik will sit on front, never minding the fact that he was even a former head of state in the country. He will sit on board because of the respect of the party. So we are jettisoning party discipline, party hegemony in the political power play. And that is what we are harvesting now. We are harvesting witnesses whereby individuals, either on the basis of the type of structure they are having or on the basis of the type of political sagacity they have developed with the money they have accumulated over the years, they are now becoming more powerful, more prominent than the political parties.
But in this case now, but in this case, if there's no compromise, so to speak, because you look at both sides, it appears they are not willing to compromise at all. Of course, the camp of Atiku Abubakar is not willing to accept that the chairman of the party should resign. Governor Wike himself keeps insisting that the chairman of the party should resign. So where do we go from here? How can this be resolved? Because every day, just as I said in my intro, you see Governor Wike come out on TV, taking a swipe at the party and its leadership and doing everything to undermine his party, not just in Rivers State, but across the country.
Because the party is more interested in his money and structures. They are now putting a loop regarding the needed thing to be done now, which is the institutionalization of disciplinary mechanism. No person should be over and above any political structure. No person should be over and above. I expected the leadership of the party's board of trustees to really be alive and come on board and really call all the parties under it and do the needful. The political party should come and entrench discipline and decorum within the party. Otherwise, this thing will have the potentiality of threatening their manifest chances of 2023 electoral victory.
Do you think the reason why the party has not been able to wield the big stick now is just because it is scared that if it does not have Wike on board, that it might lose the election? Could that be the case?
Well, I do not think so, because if you look at the political history of the juggernauts within the party, Atiku Abubakar, when he was competing with, for example, Mashoud Abiola in the 80s, even Bola Tinubu was just a PA to Mashoud Abiola at that time. So you can't compare the political maturity, the sagacity, the structures, the build-up over the history, the spending on the party and other things that Atiku did. Wike was a student then in the 80s. And then when you compare for example, with the advent of PDP, Wike started as a local government councillor when Atiku was already a vice president. So you cannot consider this. There must be respect to historical seniority. There must be respect to political antecedents. There must be discipline and decorum. If we are to talk about that, if it is money, if you allow money to be the only sole determinant, then you don't have what it takes to bring about the needed changes in Nigeria for 2023. Because the corruption, the magnitude of corruption, and the historic kind of accumulation of things without thinking of values, without thinking of decorum, without thinking of respect to the build-up of party hegemony over and above any other interests. These are the kind of things that led to the defeat of the PDP, and it appears that PDP has not learned a lesson. If they cannot bring themselves within one house and then instill discipline, Walid Jibrin should really think of coming on board as the chairman of the board of trustees, since he is the chairman. Or if they cannot sanction any person now, then there is no relevance of the party board of trustees. There is no relevance of the party board of trustees, and then they will allow other parties to exploit from the fight of these juggernauts within the PDP enclave.
Now, Governor Wike has continued to say that, he says this all the time, that that the party should not joke with Rivers vote. He keeps saying it, that the party shouldn't joke with Rivers vote. And of course, the party has always won the presidential election in Rivers State, including the governorship election. You know, he tends to be given the impression that without Rivers vote, there's no way the PDP can win the presidential election. Do you share that sentiment?
That is a deficit approach, and I do not subscribe to that sentimental belief. I believe that if today PDP will really be as formidable as it used to be, if they should expel Wike from the party, nothing will prevent it from the potentiality of its victory come 2023. It has entrenched very, very rich historical political routine within the Rivers State and entirety of the southern part of the country. The only thing that PDP needs to do is to really rationalize its own priority. There are people that are really statesmen of highest pedigree within the Rivers State, within the South-South, and within the southeastern geopolitical zones. These people need to be embraced. These people need to be brought on board. It is very, very important to be reflecting back on those fundamental people that have really made PDP what it is today. One of the problems of PDP is the fact that they dump those people who were the original seeds, who were planted that leads to the germination of the current trees, under which a shadow and other these things people are now coming to hide. Very, very important. PDP should really reflect back to its original founding fathers and bring them on board. Let them replace the current leadership of the Board of Trustees if they cannot do the needful. Because when the party is at the heat of its crisis currently, this is when statesmen are needed. They should come and speak sense of wisdom, sense of reasoning, sense of discipline to these people that are fighting. Otherwise, at the level it is, Wike is ready to even go to any length, and it is just a matter of counting number of days for him to even get out of the parties if the statesmen that are at the outer side of the party cannot really come back and bring their house to order. Once the statesmen allow everything to be on the side of the Lucha, and remember, even the current chairman that Wike is saying should resign. When he was the chairman, when he was the Senate president, where was Wike? When he was the Senate president, Wike was a student. And then here is he talking about the man to resign. Chairman should resign. What if there is any need for anybody to resign? Wike should appropriately take democratic way of doing it by petitioning to the party, by petitioning to the court. After all, when you take the provision of the Electoral Act, especially when you take the provisions of sections 76 down to section 92, there are provisions for him to go to the court for redress. Why should he take the party's hard-earned image? When they started harvesting their image right when Wike was a local government chairman, why should they take it to the streets of the public domain? I think it's most unexpected of a party that was beating its chest as the leading black people's political party in the whole world and as the champion of democracy in Africa. The party should be the ones from whom other political parties should emulate and correct what is called party discipline,
unfortunately,
party
that is
and the strategies for which to win elections in the forthcoming encounter.
Unfortunately, that is not the case. And just as you have said, this is what you get when you begin to promote money politics. But just before I let you go, give me your take on this, what is happening in Rivers State at the moment. You can clearly see the governor is going against his own party men who are loyal to Atiku Abubakar. He is seizing their filling stations, shutting down their hotels, really going after them, saying he's going to crush them.
He has already tried it earlier on, and he has seen himself being successful. He has insulted the parties by actions and by pronouncement at so many fora, and the party has remained aloof, simply because of the consideration of the fact that they cannot do without him. Now let me ask the PDP as a political party a question. Supposing His Excellency Wike, unfortunately, I'm not praying. Fortunately, I'm not in any way praying for that. Supposing, with due respect to him, he now collapsed and died, or supposing he is sick, does that mean that is the end of their El Dorado dream of winning the presidential election in 2023? Political parties should be political instruments that are over and above any individual's consideration. They should be above any paramodial or parochial consideration. Political parties should be generating engines of ideas, should be a very excellent university of matriculating statesmen that should be inducted at the end of it as elder statesmen. Political parties should be the engine that should drive the nation to development in the next 10, 20, 50, 100, 200, 1,000 years. They should see the activities of the party now beyond even the lives of the present crops of the political party. They should begin to really show leadership by example. What Wike is doing is simply because there seems to be no leadership at the level of the Board of Trustees. I don't want to talk much about the level of the Federal National Executive Council of the party, because he is already saying that the leadership of the National Working Committee, that is the chairman of the party, should resign before he considers anything. I believe, if I am to advise the PDP as a political party, in all honesty, in all sincerity, with highest degree of modesty and statesmanship, PDP should consider dismissing him from the party in the interest of party's progression, in the interest of party's unity, in the interest of party's harmony, in the interest of robust development, and in the interest of concentration of attention towards winning the 2023 election. Otherwise, the politics of having somebody who is an opponent from within is more disastrous to any political engagement than having an enemy from outside.
Well, I think that's where we have to leave it. Nasara Kogo Ubar, Public Affairs Analyst, thank you very much for joining us on the program, and thank you for your contributions.
You're welcome.
Thank you so very much, sir. All right, we'll take a short break now, and we'll be right back. Stay with us, don't go away. Welcome back. Now, the Nigerian government has signed an agreement with the United States of America for the return of over $23 million stolen by the late former military head of state, General Sani Abacha. Abacha ruled the country from 1993 until his death in 1998, during which time Transparency International estimated he took up to $5 billion of public money, which are currently scattered in different accounts across the world. The Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, represented the federal government at the agreement signing ceremony held at the Federal Ministry of Justice in Abuja, while Mary Leonard, the U.S. ambassador to Nigeria, signed the agreement on behalf of her country. Now, the ambassador, while speaking at the event, revealed that the amount of money stolen by the late dictator and his cronies, which have been repatriated to Nigeria by the United States, has hit over $334.7 million. Meanwhile, the Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, says the funds would be used for infrastructure projects, including the Abuja-Kaduna Road, the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, and the second Niger Bridge, under the supervision of the Nigeria Sovereign Investment Authority. The decision of the government to use the funds for infrastructure has, however, sparked outrage in some corners, as some people are of the opinion that there are better endeavors to expend the money on, like sorting the country's university lecturers so that Nigerian students can return to school after over 5 months of strike action. Well, joining me to discuss this further is Olarewaju Suraj, who is the Executive Chairman of Human and Environmental Development Agenda Header. Thank you very much for joining us on the program, Larry. Let me start by asking you what your take is on those who are saying, look, spend this money on the lecturers, the university lecturers who are on strike, and don't spend it on those infrastructure projects.
I think that is just a misunderstanding and misconception about the process of the repatriation. So what we've had now as a new process, coming from the experience of where, previous recovery were reluted, were diverted, and even some of them under this government were properly underutilized to the extent that it becomes difficult to monitor. I mean, in 2004 to 2006, about $500 million that was actually recovered went into almost where you can't really point at the impact of those funds. And also to the extent that even projects were duplicated, projects were located in locations where we don't even have on the Nigerian map, and some of those projects were projects that were earlier funded. So the UNCAC arrangement and the agreement now is such that before the fund is even returned to the country, there's an agreement on the utilization, the purpose for which the fund would be deployed. The ASU strike thing didn't come up before this conversation started. It is not just a product of a 1 month discussion. It's been on long before now. And beyond that, we can't also just use some of these funds for this kind of particular, either the education or
Yeah,
lecturer
recurrent
thing. It
recurrent
has to be
expenditure, so to speak.
absolutely, there has to be, capital restriction that can benefit the larger society and majority. Yes, the issue of the education and the funding of the institution is very important, but I think looking at our educational system, I think we also need to look at it holistically beyond even just the asset recovery or the loot recovery. We need to have an holistic review of how much has gone into the educational sector and how much is actually there. Look at what is gone to TED Fund, for instance. Go and check with the corruption that you have in TED Fund, both between the TED Fund officials and even the administrators in school, to the extent that, we have wives of vice chancellors who are also taking fund from the universities to embark on some very ridiculous trips out of the country and the rest of that. So there's a
Anyway,
whole lot of misapplications
yeah.
in that
Anyway,
place.
but
But
the TED
now,
fund is not actually what we're talking about now, and the education thing just
absolutely.
came up by the way.
Uh,
But the
mhm,
truth is that, just as you have explained, there was an
mhm,
agreement to use these monies on
absolutely.
this
Mhm,
projects that we're talking about, because even
absolutely.
in the past, I
Yes,
remember when the Swiss money too came, they were used for some other
absolutely.
projects as well. Now let's talk
Mhm,
about the monitoring of this the monitoring of how this money is
mhm.
spent. The Minister of Justice alluded to that, said civil society groups are part of they are part of those who are supposed to be monitoring this. I know you've been involved.
Yeah.
Tell me what kind of monitoring are civil society organizations expected to that's what kind of monitoring are we expected to see now? Um, is it that you have to go to where these projects are, confirm what the projects are, confirm the items that the monies will be spent on, and all of that? Just give us an insight into how you conduct this monitoring.
Yeah, so the process of the monitor, it's very difficult to actually beat the Nigerian civil servant and politically exposed person, the public officer. There's rarely any amount that is actually manual. In fact, they are now currently capable of building technological monitoring and evaluating mechanisms. So it could be very difficult to beat them to their game, but we're moving ahead with some advanced steps in terms of reducing the propensity and also the capacity to reloot some of these funds. So the monitoring is meant to go from as far as the moment the money is recovered back into the system, such that the civil society organization, some of them were already considered and shortlisted to be part of the process of the evaluation of the contractors to be awarded the contract, to ensure that the selection process conform with the procurement law and procurement procedure. The next level will then be the milestone for which the work will be done, and then also the funds will be released. That would lead also to the ultimate certification of the job. So the civil society organization selected now for the work are also as responsible and culpable as government officials.
Do you
So
have an idea
if
of
there's
how these
any,
civil society groups, I mean, the ones who are selected now, how is the selection done?
yeah, unfortunately, that also was not totally transparent, but it is better than the usual period and ways of just picking on some of the organizations that are either friends or in relationship or quasi-government NGOs for the purpose of the monitoring. But This was done such that the invitation was within the shortest period that was difficult for quite a number of other organizations to participate. But by and large, few numbers of the civil society organization still participated in the application process, the eventual shortlisting, which was done by the Ministry of Justice, and then also eventually the selection of the particular civil society organization expected to embark on the monitoring process. But it would have been better where you have that level of capacity for some of the civil society organizations that have done that before, now to actually have the expertise to be deployed for the purpose of the monitoring. But like I said, it is the beginning. It's a process that must also be scrutinized, and the NGOs must also be held accountable if there is any default in the utilization of the fund. So it is not just going to be government official or government offices that now will be held, responsible for inadequacies in the utilization of the fund. Those organizations that have taken up the responsibility of monitoring are also going to be part of the evaluation process, and then also share part of the responsibilities for whatever happens with the fund.
And of course, we just wait and see how the monies will be shared, because we have three very
Mhm,
critical projects here. So
mhm.
what each project will get, we'll wait and see when the
Yeah.
government reveals that.
Yeah,
But
because it's not going to be just the funding the project from the onset. The
yes,
projects are already on
ongoing.
the advanced
Yes.
stage. Yeah, exactly. So there will be a need for also understanding, so that some of the funds are not also allocated for carrying out part of the project that already been executed on
Executed.
those even identified projects as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's true. Now,
Mhm,
look, there have been series of returns or repatriation of
mhm.
funds now, if you like. But with this recoveries or this repatriation we're seeing, do you think they are enough to deter corruption, deter corrupt government officials, whether civil servants or politically exposed persons now, from, laundering money abroad?
No, actually, it is really not so much of a deterrent, because if you remember, we've started the process of Abacha loot recovery as far back as since when Abdusalami Abubakar was in government.
That's true.
Obasanjo also had some process of some repatriation, including even the forfeiture and freezing of assets in neighboring countries like Sierra Leone, Cote d'Ivoire, the Gambia. But that really didn't stop quite a number of officials, even as late as the officials under the government of President Goodluck Jonathan. So it is really not yet that much of a deterrent. And what you can see more or less is that most of the repatriated funds are only attributed to Abacha, because possibly maybe because Abacha is late.
Late.
We are yet to actually also get what happened. There's a lot of allegation about the corruption and also looting on illicit financial flow under Abdusalami Abubakar himself. There are some of those under President Olusegun Obasanjo. The ones under Goodluck Jonathan are still ongoing, with the huge amount that you have associated with Desiani Alison Madueke and some of his cronies with whom they worked in the office, the OPL 245 that we have with Mohamed Bello Adoke and the rest of them, who are still also standing trial. And I'm not sure by the time that this government is out of office, we won't have the same situation. What we really need to start doing is also holding some of these government and countries responsible. So it is not
Yes,
just
exactly. I was
sufficient
going to ask you
for us
that if you
to,
think they're doing
yeah,
enough
no,
to stop it.
no, it's not just enough for us to clap for them for returning the money. Those money could have assisted the country as at the time that we needed them or the time that we're taking them away. So now we're having budget deficit that is almost beyond our generation, revenue generation. And some of these monies are still finding their way outside the
Out.
country in terms of, assets and liquid cash that are in the banks of this country. So we also need to start holding them responsible and then also accountable for some of the funds that are recovered. It is not just enough to recover. It is sufficient for us that the funds are blocked from reaching their countries and also their economy.
Lanre Suraj, Executive Chairman, Human and Environmental Development Agenda. Thank you very much for your time with us, and thank you for talking to us.
Always my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so very much. Yeah. Well, that's how much we can take on the program this week. We thank you very much for watching. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.